Welcome to the Winning with Shopify podcast. This is the podcast to help you scale your Shopify store into a money-making machine. This podcast is sponsored by Privy. Privy is the fastest way to grow sales with email and SMS. You can build your list, save abandoned carts, send money-making emails and texts, and more, all in one place. Plus, you'll get coaching and support from e-commerce experts no matter where you start. Sign up for a free 15-day trial today by heading over to www.privy.com/winning to get started. Your host is Nick Truman. He's a Shopify expert and the CEO of JustAskParker.com, a global specialist marketing agency for Shopify owners. Nick will be sharing his knowledge and interviewing the experts to help you thrive and build an e-commerce business that makes you more money. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Here's your host, Nick Truman.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Winning with Shopify podcast. For anybody that's not tuned in before, my name's Nick, and welcome to the show. It's an absolute pleasure to have you listening to us today, wherever you might be. To anybody who's been subscribing for a while, welcome back, and a massive apology. I got a few notes coming into my inbox last week. We didn't post an episode, and I'm very, very sorry. We had a last-minute cancellation, which I was absolutely gutted about, as you can imagine, because I thoroughly enjoy interviewing guests and learning lots of new things. So sorry about last week. We are back this week, and as I say, every week at the moment, we've got quite a tight schedule coming up, so we've got plenty of awesome episodes being recorded, edited, and then pumped out to you guys as well. Today, we're going to be talking about website conversion rates, as you probably saw from the title. We're going to try and give you as many different things you can try and do and some case studies and examples of stuff you could do to your website to boost the conversion rate. So we want to convert as much web traffic as we can into customers and, most importantly, into revenue and profit. Joining me today, who's going to be sharing a lot of light on this as well, his name's Ben. He's the CEO of Privy. And without further ado, Ben, welcome to the show.
Nick, super excited to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. And Ben, you've told me a little secret just before we joined, which won't be a secret to some of our listeners, that you run your own podcast. So why don't you tell us about your podcast, tell us about Privy, and also a little bit about yourself, just to get things started.
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, so I run a podcast called E-commerce Marketing School. It's a daily podcast, 5 to 10 minute episodes, all on how to drive more growth and sales and profit on your e-commerce store.
Nice.
It's based off our experience at Privy, helping over 100,000 Shopify stores specifically generate $7 billion in sales. So it's super fun, it's lighthearted, and it's tactics only. So definitely check it out.
Nice. I definitely will be doing that. And highly recommend to most of our audience to check that as well. So go on then. Tell us about Privy and a bit about yourself as well.
Yeah, so I grew up in a family of small business owners, and I was the technical one in the house. So, mom and dad both had their own business, and they said, "Hey, Ben, build me a website." Then it was, what's email marketing? What's Google Ads? And I just kind of saw this wave coming where, love my parents, but they're not digital natives, right? And if small business owners like them are kind of gravitating towards self-service marketing technology that they could kind of tweak and use themselves, as opposed to paying developers huge sums, then there was a shift coming. And looked around and really felt like there was a lot of great solutions for B2B small business like HubSpot, even for like restaurant and retail like MailChimp, and felt like there was a void of someone that was focused entirely on small business e-commerce. And that was where Privy started.
Nice. And I certainly agree with you. I think there's a lot of e-commerce stores we work with, from Shopify to Magento to lots of other platforms. And there's definitely a void in just general CRM systems, something to actually tie all the different things together. So like if a customer signs up on the website for a newsletter, rather than just pinging that straight to your email platform, having that centralized database that is then feeding that information into Google Ads and all the other different places. Sounds like an amazing system, and something I'm sure we'll be covering a little bit more as we go through. But let's talk about conversion. Today's topic is conversion. So for anyone that's tuned in going, what on earth am I listening to right now? Do you want to explain for us, what do we mean by conversion? What is a conversion on a website?
Yeah, I think there's a few ways to think about it, right? At the end of the day, if you're selling online, right, you're an online business, you're trying to drive a transaction, you're trying to drive a sale.
Yeah.
But what we know, like if you're using Shopify, right? I know that's most of the audience in this podcast. When you log in, you'll see that your website conversion rate is typically, 2 to 3%. Maybe if you're awesome, it's above that. And so if the end goal is a sale, then our approach and how we coach and educate is that, there's multiple steps that a customer takes or a lead takes before they actually end up completing an order, right? So they got to land on the site, they got to look around, they got to add to cart, they got to, complete a checkout, right? And so each one of those steps represents a key component to the customer journey before the conversion happens. And so, what I like to say to brands that I work with and operators that I work with is, rather than just go for the goal in the first visit, recognize that you're going to need a handful of touch points.
Yep.
Whether those are on your site or off your site, and we can get into more of this, but like to nurture that person, to understand who they are and what they're here for, and get them comfortable before they complete that sale.
There's definitely a dangerous assumption that I've come across in my many years where people assume that someone lands on a single page and goes, oh, that's a great product, and just buys it. And the reality couldn't be further from that at all. I think you mentioned touch points. What would some of those touch points do you think be if we talk about just the website to start off with? What are some of the things that you would say every website needs? And anybody listening, pen and paper moment. Something every website needs to convert somebody from landing on your site, from an advert or an SEO listing or an email or something, to actually making a purchase decision?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think every customer, let's talk about the customer and then the business, right? The customer needs to understand, like, why should I buy from you? What are the benefits to me? And why should I connect with this brand? So I think founder story and the why behind that is a big reason why customers buy directly versus just like searching for similar products on Amazon.
Sure.
Right. So that's one. The other is like a clear benefits, right? So copywriting, like you've got just a handful of seconds when someone lands on your site to get them interested in going further, right? So that initial like hero image, your product photography, your founder story, like you need to very clearly lay out the benefits of why, this is a good product for that customer.
Yeah, definitely.
And the more specific you can get, the better, I think.
I mean, one of the things that strikes me when you said that, imagery plays such an important part in this, doesn't it? So say you're looking at a pair of shoes specifically for like going on adventures. The image you expect to see is somebody out in the wild wearing those shoes, having a great time. Either it's sort of summer or they're climbing a mountain in the middle of winter, something epic. But that's all just trying to understand the customer, isn't it? And using that imagery to bring that message of both the kind of why buy and also the, as you say, the benefit to light.
Yeah. The visuals should inspire your visitor to feel like, oh yeah, that is what I aspire to be, right? Or that is the solution to the problem I'm trying to solve right now,
Yeah.
So I think those are the core, just like first impressions, right? So the copy, the visuals inspiring them, and the connection to the founder story behind the brand. But I think there's a couple other things that are critical here, right? Like when you think about further down the funnel, right? So let's say you've got someone interested and, now they're like on the product page and they're adding to cart. What are the shipping fees? Are there shipping? Is there free shipping? So, that's why you see these free shipping bars on so many sites, because communicating that from the moment they land on the site through the moment that they're kind of further into their journey just removes any unknowns that someone may encounter when they're about to check out.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example, right? Last night, I actually ended up buying a box of specialty potato chips. And, throughout the whole thing, they're showing the price and why these chips are special. And it's great. I know it sounds funny that I'm buying chips direct to consumer, but when I got to the checkout, there was, out of the blue, there was $10 for shipping. And I ended up buying it anyways because it wasn't a big deal to me, but it gave me pause, right? So, that's why you see tactically dynamic shipping bars on so many websites out there. So that's one tactic that can help you as a business drive clarity throughout the buying process on just something that the majority of consumers care about when they get to that checkout. So that's one. But then from the business perspective, I think the other thing that I like to think about is like, you have to segment your website traffic. The same way that, I imagine so many people listening have, gone deep in email marketing or SMS marketing, and they've got journeys and flows and all this stuff of like, what happens if this person does this, or they click that, but they don't click this, right? That's great, right? But like, why aren't you taking a similar approach to what's happening on your website? So I think this is a huge part of conversion, and not a lot of people talk about it. Look, I think every brand out there needs to try to capture an email because of what we said early on. And the way to do that is kind of at two stages of website segmentation. The first is, the top of the funnel, right? So whether you paid for an ad that drove this person or it was SEO, you don't know if this person's coming back, right? So at the top of the funnel, while they're showing a little bit of interest, what can you do to capture that email? And that's why, Nick, you see so many pop-ups on e-commerce stores. I believe those work, and they're huge value to the brand. And what happens there, the top of the funnel, that's going to connect nicely to like, your welcome series, which is a critical part of e-commerce marketing, because as you grow your list at the top of the funnel, you got to use that once they're off of your site to educate them and nurture and remind them to come back to purchase.
Yeah, definitely.
That's top of funnel. But then what you've got is like middle of funnel on your website, right? So someone who just landed here and hasn't really looked at, multiple products yet, or hasn't read your story, they're still very top of funnel. But once they've got, let's say, 2 or more page views, they've now added a product to their cart, right? These are all things that you can detect using, technologies like Privy now, and many others, by the way.
Love the plug. Absolutely fine on this show.
but like, that's your middle of the funnel, right? So to me, as a brand owner, if I've got someone who's back on the site for the second time, I know they have not made a purchase yet. They've got 2 products in their cart that equals, $70, and maybe I know my AOV is $50. I want that person to complete the order right now. And so targeting like a separate modal or pop-up or whatever you want to call this to your middle of funnel audience, we call these things cart savers, to that high intent audience that's also about to leave again, that's a really prime opportunity to, again, hey, is this person on my email list? If not, let's go for the capture and then drive them into a separate nurture flow. And so the whole idea here is like, it's not just like every website visitor is not the same, and technology today can help you, even if you're not super advanced, identify top of funnel, middle of funnel, repeat VIPs, whatever, back on the site, and help you cater to them a little bit differently to go for the capture and overall increase your conversions.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's kind of, my personality type is a debater. So I'm going to hit you with 2 negatives. Broadly, I completely agree though. But I'm going to hit you with 2 sort of negatives that can come out of this if people get it wrong, I think. One of them is that you talk about the kind of automation side of things. I've seen so many websites that are just over cluttered with stuff. It's like you land and you get a big thing saying, join our newsletter. And I think, again, adding some sort of AI, a decision-based process, a bit of machine learning to decide when to show that banner and who to. So if you know they're a returning visitor and you know they're on your email database, never ever show that newsletter pop up because you've got other things you probably want to push in front of them. You might then get the sort of, it was really popular a few years ago when you go for the close button or the back button on a browser and it would pop up saying free shipping in the next 1 hour only, kind of like trying to hit you to stop you leaving if it thought you had any exit intent. So my point is, none of these things are bad, but I think we just try and be very, very careful, all the store owners listening or people working on Shopify stores, to try and be very careful that you don't clutter the website too much. You don't put so many of these things in that it completely stops you in your tracks. But I completely agree, Ben. I think we have the technology now, as you say, to be catering to people. So if we can work out that somebody is only $10 from free delivery with their basket value, why not at this point say, well, look, they've been on the site long enough now, they're $10 away. Just pop up something and says it's free delivery if you buy in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And see if you can push them over the edge, because they're only $10 away. And if you need to spend $200 for free delivery, well, come on, they're so close. It's not a million miles away anyway.
Totally.
And so I think some things like that can be really, really smart. I want to roll back to the delivery one. So you talked about the delivery cost hitting you with these chips. We call them crisps in the UK, and I thought they need to say that.
I like that.
But these chips or crisps that you're buying, I always believe in having as transparent as possible delivery information. So we saw one site recently that had free delivery across the site, and it said that in the top bar, like above, every page, top of the header, it said free delivery on all orders. But there was the option to pay a little bit extra to get next day delivery, so to get an express delivery. But the way they worded it and the way they designed it made delivery look really complicated. So on every single item, it would say large delivery, medium delivery, and small delivery for next day, and the 3 different prices. But there was nothing on the page to tell you how big your item was that you were looking at. Does this fall under, big, little, or small? And so it just was not clear. And I think that was the big challenge, is actually they were offering completely free delivery, which to customers is a good thing. I mean, obviously, if it says free delivery and you don't get that, then there's a problem. But I think the upgraded delivery, the conclusion we came out with is only show the upgrade delivery cost for the item you're looking at. So don't confuse them with 3 things. Just say, for next day delivery on this item, it is X. And that's where, as you mentioned, some more dynamic shipping options, I think, is really important.
Yeah. And if anyone out there is familiar with the Baymard Institute, Baymard.com, they do a ton of research reports around commerce specifically.
Nice.
And I was looking at their 2022 data. So this is like brand new, fresh data. They're talking about reasons for abandonment during checkout. And I just want to read off a few that
please.
Are all shipping or delivery related, right? So extra costs are too high. So shipping, tax, or fees. That's 48%. That's by far the number one reason for abandonment, right? So it doesn't mean every brand can support free shipping, but at least, like we're talking about, make clear from the beginning of that customer journey on your site what to expect, right? So that's one at 48%.
So just on that as well, when you say about not everyone can offer free shipping, I think one thing that we did with another client years ago that was really fruitful, and it's stuck in my brain ever since, is we looked at what percentage of the item cost the shipping was. And we decided with that client, they decided to make a bit of a loss on some of their smaller items. So they said the maximum shipping should ever be is 25% of the cost of the item. Because otherwise you get to cart and you say, right, I'm buying $20 worth of stuff, but the delivery is $18. So you feel like it's actually just double the amount you're paying. And there's definitely a psychological element to that. So yes.
Yeah, totally agree with that. So just a few more, if it's okay.
Yeah, no, please. These are cool.
Fascinating. So the second one that I thought was interesting was delivery was too slow. That's 22%. So not about the costs, but about the timeline of delivery.
Mm-hmm. And
then the third was I couldn't see or calculate the total order cost up front. That's 16%. So if you add those 3 together, that's 86% of the reasons people abandon. 86% are related to
just in those 3 things.
Yeah, unforeseen costs, too slow shipping, or just couldn't figure out the final price up front.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
What I love as well, which is obviously why we're talking about this, such easy solutions to these things.
Yeah.
So I guess some of the people listening will be thinking, right, that's great. That's a report. How do I calculate some of those percentages on my own site? Like, how do I find out how many people think the costs are too high? What's a good way of people finding out that sort of information?
I think there's a few things that are really like revealing in terms of website conversion. One is like Hotjar, or there's tons of these platforms out there. They're like heat maps. You can see where people are clicking and all that. You can watch some live recordings of users. You don't need to have that forever on your site, but they may have a free plan or it's pretty low cost. Like, you're going to learn a lot by watching 100 people just engage with your website, right?
Yeah.
Stuff that you might not ever think about. So I highly recommend that. The other thing that you can do is like, I'm a big believer in testing offers, right? And so this could live in your cart abandonment strategy, but every site is different, as we said. But like, if the data from Baymard is showing that, shipping is the number one reason for abandonment by far and away. Test that, right? Maybe your offer for cart abandonment emails that you lead with is free shipping. See if that makes a difference, right? See if that's going to end up working from a profit margin for your business. If that's not working, try something else. Maybe it's just customer service, right? Instead of the free shipping offer on abandonment, just have an email that's sent that looks like it's from the founder. Hey, it's Ben. I'm the founder. I really stand behind our products. It looks like you had product A in your cart, but didn't end up buying. Do you have any feedback? I'd be happy to answer any questions. Right? Go for the response. So, I think a lot of times we rush to kind of try to scale solutions as fast as possible. But I think when you boil it down, there's some pretty simple things you can do that all revolve around either offer testing or watching your users or just freaking asking them.
Definitely. I'm glad you put that last one on there, because that's the one we get most common on the podcast when we do talk about these sort of things, is going through and asking customers for feedback. Why did you buy this product? Why didn't you buy this product? What did you like about our website? What don't you like about the brand? And actually, one bit of advice that somebody, and I completely forgotten the name, so apologies if you're listening back to this, but somebody did say a while ago not to ask any questions like the 4 I've just listed. They said to ask much more specific questions. So try not to go too open and broad. Because if you just sort of say, what do you think of us? Like, I don't care. Is the reply. Yeah. So I think we've got to focus on questions that are more like the one you've just given. You added this to your cart. Why didn't you buy it? And someone might say, oh, I actually added 10 things to cart and I was only planning to buy one, but if I add them to cart, I can see them all side by side.
Right.
And then if enough customers make the same amount of noise, obvious solution, put some sort of comparison tool on the site. Apple is a very good website comparing laptop models. You can compare a MacBook Air to a MacBook Pro to an iMac to probably not an iPhone, but you get the idea. You can put them side by side and see the different ticks and crosses. And with something like Shopify, there are some great tools that can do that sort of thing. And they can put certain metrics side by side on any product the customer wants to add. So it could be the size, it could be the warranty, it could be the delivery time, depending on, what it is, or if it's a food item, how, when's the best buy date? When do I need to eat this product by?
Yeah.
And so I think there's some really, really good ideas in there. But certainly Hotjar's great. One client I spoke to years ago, they organised a focus group and said it was £100 for everyone who wants to come. And there was no limit to how many people that could come, £100 each or $100. And what they did is they invited them to their head office in central London, which is the hub of the entire UK over here. So they invited everybody in and they said to them, right, here's a credit card, go and buy £5,000 worth of stuff on our site. But we want you to say what you're thinking, just kind of speak out loud constantly. And that was the exercise. And they learned so much about where people were clicking. People were saying like, oh, I thought that bit there was clickable, or okay, that page has taken a little while to load. All this is absolutely vital feedback. And there's just this really simple list of actions at the end of it to go, well, we need to fix our page speed. We need to move that button because no one can actually click on it. Or when somebody's sitting there going, I don't know when this is going to arrive. And, they were asking questions halfway through as well. And I think so easy to do. And just to round off on the third thing you said as well about testing offers. We had Jared, who was from Skincare by Elena. Him and his wife run the business, and he was saying that they slowly kept increasing the threshold for free delivery. So they kept nudging it up by like sort of $2 or $3 every week until they reached the point where conversion rate started to drop. And they did this as a test and found a complete sweet spot. There was something random like $72, for example. But that was the sweet spot. That meant people spent a little bit extra to get the free delivery, but it didn't decrease the total volume of orders. And as we all know with delivery, if you send 10 products to one address, it's cheaper than sending 10 products to 10 addresses. So again, some really simple little exercises that can try and help increase the conversion rate.
Totally agree. Yeah, and it's interesting to see that. I mean, I look at the Baymard research every year around abandonment, and like honestly, very little has changed in the last 5 years for reasons why people abandon.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, let's talk. We talked about all the positives, and well, not all of them, but quite a few things people can do and try. What are some of the things to avoid? Like I mentioned about the kind of cluttering of things on the site, and you land and it's like, do this, do this, do this.
Yep.
And the customer's like, what the heck? I just wanted to look at this hat. I'm getting bombarded. Exactly. What are some of the common things that you guys come up against that turn customers off, that just generally a big no-no, or in that particular scenario just didn't work so well?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think for me, the things that are going to matter most that I actually like, if you browse, whether they're your clients or a bunch of sites out there, that's usually missing is the story behind the brand. Like, I think, we moved away from that for a long time in e-commerce, and you didn't need an about, or you didn't need a great brand story, because people just wanted to buy online. It was more convenient. But if you're not selling on Amazon and you're trying to win direct to consumer, that's a huge no-no in my mind to avoid that, right? That needs to be front and center, and that's a big reason why people buy. In terms of like actual things on your website that you got to do or avoid, I think one of them is making sure that you've got all the express checkouts enabled. So I don't know if Nick, you've worked with clients on that, but you've got to, like, and if you're on Shopify, it's pretty easy to do this, right? There's PayPal, there's Amazon Pay, there's Google Pay, there's Shop Pay. Like, there are really, really passionate people out there that will not buy if you don't have their preferred payment method enabled.
Yeah.
And so, that's a simple thing that you can do as a brand. And you could test that, right? Like, what's your conversion rate today? Try adding one of those and see how it goes.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the big challenges I find with, certainly with Shopify, and we touched on this a little bit earlier with all the kind of pop-ups and stuff, is people add too many apps to their store.
Agreed.
I think one of the biggest things I find, certainly as an SEO person, when we're looking at page speeds, you start looking at the code and you run it through a page speed tool that gives you a nice visual of like, okay, this image is loading, then this, and then this Java file is running, and then this little app here is popping up. And you look through and you sort of get your pencil out and tick and cross which ones are actually doing anything. And half of them are doing nothing. And sometimes, like Hotjar, for example, it can slow down page speed because it's another script in the back end. So you mentioned earlier about just running it for a particular amount of time. I think that's a great way to do it. And you can actually put something in the code to say, if we think this is a search engine crawler, don't run Hotjar, because it'd be completely irrelevant because there's no mouse, and it's basically a robot looking at the site to decide where to rank you on Google. And so I would say one of the biggest things that certainly I've noticed turns customers off is when pages load really slowly, or something doesn't work, or you scroll down on you've landed on a product page from Google Ads, from Google Shopping, and you scroll down and you find the kind of Instagram feed, and the Instagram feed doesn't load. And it's just like, it's awful.
I know.
Or you look at the Instagram feed and these guys sell trainers, and there's no trainers in any of the pictures. There's like a beach, there's a competition that expired 6 weeks ago, and then the next post along is 6 months old. So I think we often do something with our clients where we just look through, and I'm sure you guys do this as well. You go through the site and start ticking and crossing a bit of a hypothesis as to whether you think certain things are relevant or not, are they used or not, and then you come back to that customer data and start saying, okay, if you're buying a sofa for $5,000, do you care about the delivery cost or time? Probably to some capacity, but if it's going to be a month, before the sofa arrives, especially if it's a handmade, made to order sofa, $5,000. And so I think, again, going through all those different functions and starting to understand, is this relevant to the customer or not? That's normally the first place that we start, certainly with the kind of the turning off of customers and trying to avoid it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And actually, I think, the behavior around add-on applications has shifted over the last 5 years, right? Like, it almost reminds me of when I first bought an iPhone. The idea of apps is so exciting. You're like, oh, I'm going to download this and play this game. And then over time, you were like, what am I doing? It's taking up all this space, and I never use these things. So now, if I look at my phone, I went from probably, I don't know, maybe 100 apps that I used a couple of years ago to like 2 or 3. And I think that's exactly the direction that brands need to go. And, Nick, you've harped on this a lot, and I agree with you. Like, if you have an app for Shipping Bar, an app for pop-up, an app for post-purchase surveys, an app for email, an app for SMS, like, it becomes unwieldy for you or anyone on your team to understand what's happening and what's firing when, right? And actually, like, not to harp on Privy too much, but that's the strategy that we've taken. Like, we think there's kind of 3 core things that every brand needs to do to drive more conversions, right? They need to get traffic to their site. They need to convert that traffic into leads and sales. and then they need to use channels like email and SMS to drive them back. And so we've tried to help our brands consolidate all the tracking they're doing of their customers, all the shipping bars and the targeting of pop-ups and segmentation on their site, as well as, the messaging they're doing off the site. And, there's a lot of places you can go to do that these days, but I recommend that folks think about consolidating and removing the number of apps on their store down to, as few as possible for all the reasons we've discussed.
Yeah, definitely. Let's move on to the kind of next part of this then. So we've spoken a bit about conversion, what turns customers on, what turns them off. Let's talk as well about, and I appreciate we didn't prep this at all, but let's talk about upsells and cross sells, because we've mentioned the cart, we've mentioned pop-ups. Websites, I think when you add something to cart, the website has a really unique opportunity to actually have a pop-up. And in the olden days, the pop-up would say successfully added to basket, because in the early days of the web, that was a success. Being able to get something in the cart. When people were building websites without Shopify and doing all the code manually, and that's fair enough. But these days, I mean, again, especially someone who I work in advertising a lot, so I want the highest possible average order value. I want the most revenue. I want the best ROI to go back and show my clients, because those are the metrics that my entire business is gung-ho on. So what are some of the things we can do then if somebody's putting their first pair of trainers in a cart? What can we do in that moment to drive conversion, to get people to buy more products without being really like, right, you want shoes, and just throw a million shoes at them? What can we do to coax them into actually buying more than one product and increasing that average order value?
Yeah, I love it. I think, it starts with a strategy on the products that you're selling on your site, right? A lot of people start as a single product company, and that's fine. You've got your headliner. Maybe it's a pair of shoes, maybe it's a pair of jeans, maybe it's a hot sauce that you sell. I think in today's day and age, as you said, Nick, you need to get as much as you can out of the traffic that you have, right? Especially with all the changes on paid.
Yep.
So what that means is brand operators, if you don't have a product today that is a low AOV product that goes nicely with, ideally all of your products, right? So if you sell shoes, maybe it's shoelaces or insoles. If you sell razors, maybe it's blades or shaving cream, right? If whatever that may be, like, think about it. It should be less than your average order value. And I think the simplest way to come at this idea of like cross-sell or upsell is to introduce that product in the cart or checkout flow.
Yep.
So once someone's added, your most popular product, if that cart does not include this small add-on, you're presenting that, right? That's one. The other way to think about it, and get started simply is if you sell a single product or whatever, like let's say going back to that chip company, right? Most of your customers are just going to try it and buy one bag of chips. But if you create a bundled offering that's, a little bit less than the price of buying 3 bags of those chips together, then that's another easy kind of upsell that you can do, right? So those would be 2 recommendations. I think a lot of people, when they think about cross-sell and upsell, end up getting paralyzed, like, oh, like, how can we get smart about product recommendations and all that? And I say, hey, use technology, understand what's in this person's cart, and more importantly, what's not, and have a simple add-on that you can use to try to drive AOV up, or if not, move them from a single product to a bundle of products at a slight discount.
Yeah, definitely. I saw a really good one recently where you add your product to cart and it would say, reduce the cost of this product by 20% by buying 3 of them. And I thought it was a really clever way of saying that this product, you want to buy this product, would you like 20% off? Yeah, of course I would. Tell me more. Well, you've got to add 2 more of them. And interestingly, it was a product that you need to buy every sort of 1 to 2 months for your home.
Right.
And so I'm going to use 3. Well, I might as well just buy 3 now, and then I've saved 20% on each of the 3, haven't I? And so things like that. And then does it now qualify for free delivery as well? Well, yes, it does. Okay, so I've saved 20% per product by buying 3, because I'm going to buy 3 anyway. It's just, I'm going to buy them individually. Plus I've now got free shipping instead of paying 3 times over for 3 lots of shipping over the next 3 months. And so the marketer's job is to make that look simple. And that is my challenge to everyone, is simplifying some of these things.
Yeah.
But you just touched on something I think is really, really key. And that is using smart technology. So using something that's AI driven to recommend products, to something that knows and learns over time that if people add product A in their cart, they're generally also interested in either product B, C, or D, and then only shows those 3 other products to customers to say, would you be interested in this stuff as well? Knowing that they're the most often upsells and cross sells that are available. Again, caveat, be careful with too many apps. So if you can get something that does that tech side of things and recommending products, also does your inventory side of stuff, also manages all your delivery notifications, there are some good apps out there that can do several things in one, which means you can have a lot less on your page load, which means SEO is going to be working better for you. Also means it's less for you to manage. And it also means you don't have to integrate lots of systems, because it will be one system where it's all centralized. A bit like you were saying about Privy earlier, having a centralized customer record system where you can do multiple things. So that would be my 2 cents on upsell and cross sell for sure.
Yeah. And I think it's a crawl before you run type thing. But I totally agree. If you find success with some of these, then yes, it's time to get smarter about them.
And finally, as we come into land then, let's talk about the big headline on your homepage, which is about email and SMS. So we've got a customer in, they've paid some money, we want them to order again one day. How do we start that process, broadly speaking?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is sit by your bedside and pray that they remember you and come back.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us today, Ben. It's been great having you with us.
No, I think that's exactly it, right? To build a profitable brand, you got to drive repeat orders, and that's what it's all about. And there's many ways that you can do that. You can retarget people on social media. You can get them into a Facebook group. I think the key foundation of any healthy direct-to-consumer brand is an email list first. I think it's tried and true. It's very low cost. And then, as you build success, or if you have purely a younger demographic, you might want to consider other channels like SMS or WhatsApp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think one of the challenges though is getting that messaging right, isn't it? It's one thing to email a customer rather than not and just say, hey, we still exist. And that is definitely a start. And if you're not doing that, that's our first recommendation today to everybody. But there's more to it than that in terms of messaging, isn't there? You've got to be smarter in terms of how you actually engage somebody, how you talk to them, how you coax them into placing another order.
Totally. I like to talk about email and SMS. First category would be like automated messages, right? So just like I was talking about your website traffic, the idea here is to use email or SMS to meet your customer or your lead exactly where they are in their buying journey, right? So I like to talk about a welcome series. That's my favorite automation type. And so this is like anytime, whether it's today or 6 months from now, someone joins your email list and hasn't completed a purchase, this is your time to kind of reinforce why they should buy from you, right? So take that same like founder story. Maybe there's even a picture of you. Start with your first welcome email, welcoming them, right? Reminding them why you started this brand and the benefits to them of your products, right? Then maybe the next email is in that welcome series is incorporating some social proof. Like maybe it's a funny review or an amazing review or an image of one of your customers unboxing it and it changing their life, some stuff like that. So the welcome series is critical. And that's, for people that are early in the brand connection. But there's other automation types that are critical too, right? We've talked about cart abandonment. So, that's critical. I like a series of 3 emails in cart abandonment. First is, hey, this is me, the founder. Do you have any questions about the product in your cart? We really stand behind how we source our products or our customer service or our return policy. So let me know. Maybe after that, if they still haven't purchased, you test some offers. And then there's others, right? Like think about that customer journey. They made the purchase. So what's your post-purchase flow look like? Thank them, understand the fulfillment connection, whether it's Shopify or anyone else, like have some emails triggering once you know the order's been fulfilled, right? Ask how it's going, those sorts of things. So automation is key. And I would start there, right? Because it's kind of easier to understand some of those customer touch points.
Yep.
And then once you're comfortable with that, right? I do think it's easier to come up with the content for those automated triggers. Then start thinking about, is there some sort of cadence that I should be kind of sending to all of my engaged contacts?
I think certainly, there's a lot to digest there, and I almost feel like we need to get you back to another session just on the engagement.
Sorry, I jammed
No, it's great. It's great. I think the welcome series sounds amazing. I think so many businesses fail to do that, and you find yourself just on a kind of daily batch of here are some products, here are some products, here are some products.
Right.
It's like, leave me alone. I have a life to live outside of buying more furniture for my house, which is one particular retailer we have in the UK that everyone will be familiar with. So I think having a good welcome series that, as you say, talks about the ethics, that kind of thing. I love the idea of having multiple cart abandonment emails, provided there's obviously automation that if you do then come back and buy the product, the automation, the abandonment emails stop, of course. And I think that's where automation is really, really key on this stuff. But look, final question before we close then. What would you say has been the best email that you've ever received, seen, been involved in creating that's gone out within, I don't know, a month of somebody buying a product for the first time? What would you say is one of the standout things that you'll never forget that everyone today can learn something from? I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
No prep. Thanks, Nick. But no, I actually know off of the top of my head.
Cool.
So there's a brand, longtime customer of ours. They're called Baraka, Baraka. And Wayne and his wife Gifty, she's from northern Ghana. And so what the brand is all about, they sell, products like shea butter and coconut oil and all that sort of stuff. But it's actually made by women in northern Ghana. And they empower those women, right, that are making the products. And they actually use those women front and center. Like those women, they're on the product inserts. You can scan QR codes. You can watch their story on how hand making these products has empowered their families in northern Ghana. And I think the best post-purchase email that I've ever received was from them, and it's a screenshot of the actual woman who created the specific product line that I bought.
Nice.
And if you click through, it's her telling her story about how she makes the product and what selling this product has done for her and her family. Like that's the connection that stays.
And people buy people, so that connection, so important.
Exactly. So I love that because it's a post-purchase, it's specific to what I bought, and it ties me as the customer to the brand story.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Well, look, Ben, it's been amazing to have you on the show today. Something for anyone who's stayed with us this long, Privy have got a very special offer for you. And it's just for people on the podcast, from what I understand. If you go to privy.com/winning, and it's privy.com/winning, you guys can get free access to the Privy tool and have a free play with it as well. So make sure you go and check that out. Ben, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Awesome, Nick. Pleasure to be here. Really appreciate the conversation.
Great stuff. And to everybody else listening, we will be back again next week, and I will move heaven and earth if I absolutely have to make sure we've got an episode. So I absolutely hate missing it. So thanks for tuning in. Back again next week, and we hope you're all staying safe.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast. You can subscribe to our weekly newsletter for exclusive offers at winningwithshopify.com. And don't forget to check out our Facebook group by searching for Winning with Shopify on Facebook. Over and out.